Hello everyone! A lot of you have asked me about the story that's going down in Season of Discovery. The Scarlet Crusaders have a brand new, never before seen raid, specifically designed for Season of Discovery with a brand new story to accompany it. I get now why you were all so curious. After checking it out, there's some really cool stuff going on. But first, the big question to answer, is Season of Discovery canon? And the answer is not that simple. In the beginning, we had an official blue post which said, early on in Season of Discovery developments, we met with Chris Madsen to talk about the narrative in the season. In that meeting, we mutually agreed not to treat Season of Discovery as any sort of alternate history for World of Warcraft. The term that Chris used to describe our narrative approach to Season of Discovery is found photographs. This basically means you are finding little bits of information about characters or locations that fleshes them out a bit more as fixtures that are part of the living world of Azeroth, but it doesn't change characterization, motivations, or reframe any storylines in a major way. The way I've described this to people is this. Say you're going through family photos and you find pictures of your parents when they were very young on a vacation in Italy. You realize you never knew they traveled in their youth. Does knowing this now change your relationship with your parents or how you view them as people? Probably not, but it's just a fun detail you now know that you didn't know before. That's what we try to do when touching any established lore characters or storylines. Simply create a situation where you get to learn about some other adventure that these established characters were part of that maybe didn't bubble up in a novel or in-game story previously.
Look at this photograph.
That was in the beginning of Season of Discovery, going in with the mindset of it's not an alternate reality. It is part of the major storyline, but they're not trying to change the established lore. Rather, they're trying to fill in story where there might be gaps, where there could be room to expand, give information to characters that we know. The Scarlet Crusade story definitely makes use of that, but it also definitely messes with the established storyline, so I'm really curious what the mindset is now. Was this designed with the idea of, we are going to alter the lore, we want to do this, and have this as the version going forward? Or, which I personally think is more likely, was there somebody who entered the room and was like, wouldn't it be cool if, and in favor of doing something really cool, they did. Regardless of what it meant for the storyline, because it's Season of Discovery, right? It's meant to experiment and explore, which I personally really like. So yeah, not that simple of an answer. But then, what is the story that they're giving? Well, not everything is explored quite yet, but from what I've been able to find is that some of the Scarlet Crusades and the Argent Dawn, they've teamed up against the might of Naxxramas. In their absence, a force of hostile crusaders, they came in from the city of Stratholme and they've taken control of the stronghold at Tyr's Hand. Commander Beatrix and Scarlet Inquisitor Calderon don't particularly like the idea of recruiting our help and working with the Argent Dawn, but our help they do indeed need, as Saidan Dafrohan has been spotted inside of their cathedral, and that's a problem, because Dafrohan is actually the dreadlord Balnazzar, which they are well aware of. So it's time to work together and take care of business. But first, it might be a good idea to give a quick refresher on the history of the Scarlet Crusade and the Argent Dawn. Real quick, if you want more details, check out the story of the Ashbringer.
And what exactly is this scourge meant to cleanse?
Why, the living, of course.
Lordaeron fell upon hard times, with the plague of undeath being spread. Stratholme purged by their prince Arthas, who then traveled to Northrend, picked up Frostmourne, returned home and murdered his father, now serving the will of the Lich King, spreading the might and influence of the Scourge ever further. The light would not be snuffed out entirely though. Remnants of the Knights of the Silver Hands, Alexandros Mograine with his mighty weapon the Ashbringer, which literally turned the undead into ash, the Argent Dawn, holding their ground at Light's Hope Chapel, trying to keep the darkness at bay. But the darkness had plans of their own. Saidan Dafrohan was lured into a trap within Stratholme, murdered and taken over by the dreadlord Balnazzar, who then started to manipulate their people and organization from within. Mograine, the Ashbringer, was also lured into a trap by his own son Renaud, who showed up after his father had just been done murdering a mountain of undead, he picked up this blade and stabbed his father in the back. This act caused the Ashbringer to become corrupted, and his father would now serve the very forces that he fought against in Undeath as one of the 4 horsemen in Naxxramas. Balnazzar had manipulated Renault and pushed those amongst the Argent Dawn further into zealotry, causing a fracture in their organization, giving rise to the Scarlet Crusade. Having a dreadlord amongst them was not healthy. You might know about the Headless Horseman, right? It shows up every Hollow's End. He was driven mad by Balnazzar, and plenty of others fell so far down the rabbit hole that he could no longer see the difference between the living or the undead, between friend or foe. That was the reason why we'd originally go into Scarlet Monastery and take care of business. Even bring the head of Balnazzar as proof of demise. Now dreadlords are categorized as demons that can't just be slain on Azeroth. If we kill them, we send them back to where they came from, the Twisting Nether, and there they spend some time recovering, and then they could come back. Meanwhile, the story of Renault Alexandros and his youngest son Darian Mograine, that has a couple of versions, and with an eye on Season of Discovery as well as Original Classic, I really wonder what version now is truth and what they're trying to do. So we have the amazing Ashbringer comics, in which the story is that Renault betrays his father and becomes the commander of the Scarlets. Darian finds out, recruits a team of Argent Dawn members, and goes into Naxxramas to fight against the 4 horsemen, claims the corrupted Ashbringer, and hears the voice of his father. "Take me to Renault," he says. "Take me to the monastery," which Darian does. His father's spirit shows up, and vengeance is brought upon the betrayer. That didn't fix the whole corrupted Ashbringer bit though, nor did it solve his father's tormented soul within the blade. But that would come as Kel'Thuzad sent out an undead army to attack Light's Hope Chapel. There, Darian sacrificed himself. The skies opens up in response, pure light decimating the undead forces down below, but also handing over Darian and the still corrupted blade into the hands of Kel'Thuzad. Now he would be turned into a powerful agent of the Lich King, the same Darian that brand new Death Knights started their adventures with. Darian eventually breaking free, throwing the blade to Tyrion Fordring, who upon catching it purifies the blade and smacks Arthas so hard that he is forced to retreat. That's the version I know and love, a version that made it from the comics into the Warcraft Chronicles, and part of it played out in-game, because in-game it was not Darian that went into Naxxramas, it was actually us, right? It was the players that were able to defeat his father, they collected the corrupted Ashbringer, and they were the ones who took it into the monastery to see this really cool RP moment play out. And then Darian in the hands of the Lich King, as I said, it also made it into the game, but now with Season of Discovery, we're seeing some changes. Balnazzar's corruption and influence is known amongst some of the Crusaders now, and he is back already, which is not weird for Dreadlords, right, to come back, but it does seem rather quick. Last time, we saw him show up again with the Cataclysm, where he then resurrected a whole bunch of the Scarlets. Beyond the gates of Tyr's Hand, we find New Avalon, and this area should be somewhat familiar to Death Knights out there, as this is the spot that you decimate in Order of the Lich King when you made your fresh, brand new Death Knights. Appears that the Scarlets really like this place, because before there was the Lich King wiping them out, there were the heroes of Season of Discovery doing the same. After scouting out the place and our allies moving the troops into position, it is time to make our move and go into the raid. Balnazzar is quick to take our challenge and fights us with all his might at Tyr's hands. Luckily, we have the might of the light on our side to keep us safe from his silencing aura. But even so, the Dreadlord nearly wipes us out. Near death, he stuns the entire raid, gets ready to unleash our ultimate fates. But there shines a brighter light than ever before. It is none other than Calderon, wielding a purified Ashbringer, which brings absolute devastation to Balnazzar. That blade must haunt the Dreadlord time and time again. Its might is insane, but soon enough Calderon reveals that they're no true friend or ally. With Balnazzar out of the way and their enclave reclaimed, they can resume their great work, as we're teleported to a prison within New Avalon. Now, I've been trying to find out if this is explained in-game at all, but I couldn't find an answer. So, if you're out there playing Season of Discovery and you do know why and how Calderon now has the Ashbringer, I would love to know, because I don't get how not only was he able to get his hands on the weapon, how come it's a purified version, and how come the Ashbringer supposedly chose him, and that goes into the backstory of Calderon and a side quest with Leonid Bartholomew the Revered, member of the Argent Dawn, but once a soldier serving under Prince Arthas as they purged Strathholm.
Better that these people die by my hand than serve as your slaves in death.
Leonid found out and rushed to his family. A family seemingly untouched by the plague. No signs of undeath. And so he pleaded with, at the time, Calderon serving Arthas to not do it. To not murder his family. To disobey the orders of the prince. Calderon wouldn't hear of it. And so Leonid's wife, Liliana, was slain. He would succumb to his wounds. But their son Percival, he managed to escape, while his father would be brought back in on death. The city behind us is a haunted place. I spent years here after my original death as a thrall to the Lich King. Yet even in my servitude, I maintained some amount of awareness. Countless times, I shambled by the body of my wife, frozen forever in the fear she felt when the end came. That's dark, man, but his suffering had only just begun. In time, Sylvanas Windrunner would show up and liberate them. Instead of joining the Forsaken, Leonid wandered the Plaguelands, eventually making his way home, where he was surprised to find his son alive and well. He did not reject me as the other living did. He embraced me. He had become a healer and was studying the undead. He was convinced that he could find a cure to not only prevent undeath, but reverse it. For a short time, we were together and happy. I helped my son with his research, and he gave me the hope I needed. That is, until Balin Calderon rode back into our lives. Calderon had not joined Arthas into Northrend, and eventually became a member of the Scarlet Crusade, recruiting all able bodies to join their cause, including Percival. Now Leonid peeks outside to see who was there, what was going on. The sight of undeath, a living harboring the corrupted, they had to be purified. And so Calderon finished the job, murdered Percival, while Leonid survived yet again. That's the history between these two. Not exactly a kind personality, but the Light has never really cared for morals. The Light is all about responding to conviction, right? It doesn't judge your actions or what you want to use the Light for. Instead, it responds to devotion and conviction. So, seeing Calderon wield the Light, that's not a problem. I'm just wondering how he got his hands on a purified Ashbringer. And I took this question to Twitter, and apparently the idea that's suggested is that he was an NPC in Naxxramas, and he was used to activate hard mode. So he was in the Flying Necropolis, as heroes went in to take care of some of the most powerful forces amongst the Scourge, including the Four Horsemen, including Alexandros Mograine. Then, as far as I can tell, the unconfirmed idea is that he was able to loot the blade, and then he loses it. Hinted at in his dialogue about a weapon that he used to carry in Naxxramas, which is now gone. Calderon's eyes you with barely contained hostility. Weapons are tools, a resource, nothing more and nothing less. That tool served its purpose and has been replaced. This is a pointless triviality. Mind your own concerns. So I read this, and I thought that he just had a random weapon in Naxxramas, and that he now had the Ashbringer. But I've been told that apparently the idea is that he got the Ashbringer in Naxxramas. But doesn't matter, he lost the Ashbringer, I guess, to the Scarlets in New Avalon, which is why he needed our help to get back in. But again, it's all assumptions. I don't think it's confirmed. More to the point, the reason why I'm wondering about this is because in order for it all to line up with the main storyline again, the Ashbringer now has to move from Calderon back into the hands of Darien. And how come the blade was purified if Darien's father's spirit is still inside of it? Now, it's not impossible to find a way around this, but it is a little bit tricky. And I'd much rather go with the idea of, it's Season of Discovery, we want to do some cool stuff without having to worry about the established story. But again, that's for Blizzard to decide. And who knows what other story we're going to get when the full Create Your Own Ashbringer questline is unlocked. Because warriors, paladins and hunters, they are going to make some variation of an Ashbringer of their own. Time is going to tell. For now, we have Calderon wielding the mighty purified Ashbringer, and our forces are stuck in prison. But the Argent Dawn is not so blind to just trust the Scarlet Crusaders. We're set free again, brings swift vengeance upon all those in New Avalon. A bit of a taste of what's to come once the Lich King shows up. Commander Beatrix is next, who wields the might of the Scarlet Crusade forces. Their ranks blast across the battlefield, which looks absolutely sick, but the numbers are not enough to hold us back. They also have a proto-dragon that uses the naming scheme of the red dragonflight. It's called Solastraza, and in the video that I saw, it also dropped a weapon called Remnants of the Red. The whelplings around it, they've gorged themselves upon the light and explode with it if not killed quickly enough. Mason the Echo is a badass pirate that wields the might of the sea in battle, charging around with slicing gale and putting up a massive bubble with the words, "The East Sea grants me strength." This bubble is so strong that we need to blow it up with the cannons from the ships. Then Alexei the Beast Lord packs a serious punch with his bear companion called Sir Dornal. Angela dos Santos then gives us a teleport into the Scarlet Enclave, where we, after discovering a new plague, a light-bound dragon, siphoning the souls of the pious to fuel their light-infused weapons, all that combined and more, it means a simple truth for Lord Maxwell: Red is dead. These atrocities are far beyond redemption. We'll get to that new plague in just a moment. First, we have 3 bosses brought back from death through the lights, which I've been told was done by Calderon and the might of the Ashbringer. Before us stands, once again, Vishas, Herald and Doan. The resurrection is not so clean and a lot more skeletal, more in the direction of a Balnazzar resurrecting the Scarlets, or for those that are playing retail, right, the light undead amongst the Arafi. Here too is the question, how is this going to line up with the main timeline, as Doan, for example, they were slain in their human form with the Cataclysm. An explanation or a spin that we could give is that after this encounter, they were brought back by Sally Whitemane.
Arise, my champion.
Who can perform full resurrections, but then I would wonder, if she took the effort, why didn't she bring back Herod? Again, who knows? Either way, it's a sick cool battle that calls back the previous fights, and that's not even the biggest thing the raid has to show. Up next is none other than Lilian Voss, still in her very much alive human form. We know Lilian since the Cataclysm, where she was resurrected as a Forsaken by Sylvanus' new Valkyr. Except Lilian could not deal with being a Forsaken, with being an undead. She first tried to go back home to her dad, a prominent member of the Scarlet Crusade, who did not welcome his beloved daughter with open arms. He was ready to end her accursed undead form, which our Lilian was not going to just take. Her skill in life amplified in undeath. The path before her was one of vengeance, showing up in the Scarlet Monastery, grabbing herself some sick weapons, and then ending the life of Sally Whitemane and her champion for good. Well, until the Death Knight needed them, I suppose. Then Lilian moved on to her next target. Anything that had to do with necromancy was going to be her enemy. What bigger target than Scholomance, School of Necromancy, where many believe that she gave her life, urging us to go on. Instead, she pulled through and ended up with a massive arc where she actually starts to sympathize with the Forsaken and became a prominent leader amongst their ranks. Quite a change from the Scarlet Crusader that she was in life. And now we get to see her in action while still living. A Season of Discovery exclusive, but perhaps even more interesting is the prisoner that's walking around. In the quest leading up to the raid, we find out that the Scarlets have taken someone from Forsaken as a prisoner, and that they've been developing a plague, which does damage to the living, as you'd expect from a plague, right, that swept over Lordaeron, but also the undead. And that part is new. The development could have only come with someone who is intricately familiar with the plague, like a Forsaken, like none other than Putress.
Behold now the terrible vengeance of the Forsaken. Sylvanas.
Putress, in the main timeline, has helped Sylvanas develop a similar plague, which was unleashed upon Arthas at the Wrath Gates, which caused a whole bunch of death and destruction, not just to their target, the Lich King, but also the forces amongst the Alliance and the Hordes. Did Sylvanas order the Wrath Gate to take place? Would she have cared if Arthas had been slain? Some of those answers have been kept in the dark. We do know that Putress betrayed her, took over the Undercity, together with the dreadlord Varimafras, a plague that the Scarlets also saw use in, and you can either give them credit for it, and now Sylvanas took it over, or they were the ones who stole Sylvanas' idea. It doesn't really matter, as long as Lilian goes down. But she is not slain. They apparently didn't want to give us the credit for her demise, so why and how Lilian died, that is still up for speculation. Still a blank space they could fill in.
The Ashbringer. Ashes to ashes.
A blade born of rage, vengeance, and a light so pure we've not seen its like since. It is a weapon of righteousness, of justice, of retribution, and it has chosen me. So says Calderon. The origin of the Ashbringer is still quite a mystery, and might actually be something cool for the crafting quest to dive into. We know that it was forged by Magni Bronzebeard, full on emotions over the loss of his brother Muradin Bronzebeard, who he believed had died when Arthas picked up Frostmourne. All that was forged into a weapon, crafted from a mysterious crystal, picked up by Alexandros Mograine as they were fighting the might of the Horde's invasion. The crystal was dark, and touching it cost him a hand, but he believed in his core that if a crystal so dark and corrupted existed, then surely its counterpart must be out there somewhere. Nonsense, Isilian said. It must be destroyed, trying to break it with the lights. But instead, the crystal consumed it. More and more light was thrown at it, until the crystal was purified. But where did the crystal actually come from? It's been speculated to be connected to the Naru, as they too are beings of light and dark, but that's still very much speculation, as we do not know for certain. We do know that with the crafted blade, Alexandros Mograine quickly earned the title of Ashbringer, as the undead, they had no shot against it. Now its light powers are unleashed upon us. The blade itself has to be fought as light, fire, devastation surrounds us all. All the Scarlets have built, broken down, and Calderon isn't even finished. The demon we spoke about before, the monster that existed far before the formation of the Scarlet Crusade, before the infiltration of Balnazzar, the darkness comes to the surface as the Ashbringer is corrupted once more. Another round of finding the blade. It does the trick, and it brings the threat of the Scarlet Crusade to a halt, at least for the moment. Shiny loot and mounts await to be claimed. Weapons like a massive boulder, mounts like a shiny horse. The Ashbringer itself might be reforged, or perhaps some offsprings from the original blade. At the time of making this video, that questline can't be completed yet, but I'll keep my eyes open. All in all, I can fully understand the hype that the Scarlet Enclave brought about. Season of Discovery has been an incredible experiment, and even though I dipped out after Nomedagon, I can't help but wonder if this is not something that should keep on going in new variations. Perhaps making its own reality, right? So they don't have to worry about previous lore, which they have done before with like the Warcraft movie or Alternate Draenor. Just make it its own thing, right? And you can just make cool story and scenarios and what ifs play out. Maybe like Hearthstone, where they deal with what if scenarios that could be integrated into the main storyline. And then, you know, the gameplay itself, the whole rune system, letting classes do other things like warlock tanks and rogue tanks and mage healers, I think they also came up with. Like, I had a lot of fun with the early iterations of Season of Discovery, and from what I can tell from the people going in right now, they're still having a blast. Like, the excitement for this storyline is amazing. They've also done something like the Karazhan Crypts and the Upside Down Sinners. Definitely worth to check out. I genuinely hope that Season 8 is not the end of the road. Only time's gonna tell. For now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And until next time, See ya!
One thing we get asked a lot about the end of Season of Discovery is what'll happen to my characters? Well, we don't really consider Season of Discovery to have an end, and we have no plans whatsoever to shut down the servers. We want to make sure that everyone has access to their characters and the achievements they've made for years to come. Our team has some really amazing things planned, and we really can't wait for you to see what else we're working on. Until then, thank you so much for playing Season of Discovery with us.